Welcome to Coffee and Candor. This is Amber.
Chris.
Ross.
Brandy. And we have a special guest.
Boober.
Andrea, my niece. You've heard about her. Now you get to hear her.
The woman, the myth, the legend.
Okay, so we're going to talk about a really disturbing case tonight. I've been following this I first heard about it on TikTok because true crime TikTok I'm obsessed, but the woman's name is Shanda Vander Ark, and her victim was her 15-year-old son, Timothy. Now, Timothy, it's not funny.
It's a little funny.
It gets bad, unfunny. So Timmy, shit, now you got me calling it. Goddamn. I was trying so hard to be respectful and shit. Timothy died when he was 15 years old. And he died of hypothermia and starvation. His mother and he and a little brother, an older brother, and stepfather all lived in Michigan. And originally, Mom had 4 kids from her first marriage, and she lost custody to all of them. They were living in Oklahoma, and she didn't even, she lost custody. She only was able to have supervised visitation, and this was, probably 20 years ago, so that should tell you something about...
Yeah, she must have been a shithead.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, for a mother to, first not have primary custody, but... and so she moved away and started a family, a new family in Michigan.
So hold on, she was just like, I don't get custody of my kids, so I'm going to have more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Now, first, I think it's really important that we understand that this woman, because you're going to hear the things she did, and you're going to assume she must be, well, she's a monster, but what she's not is unintelligent, uneducated. She had a law degree, passed the bar the first time. I mean, this was a bright woman. She's clearly a heinous ass monster, but and she was working when the crime happened. She was working because I believe she had lost her law license. So she was working as a clerk for the circuit court judge. Okay, and I mean, I did that kind of work. You gotta be in charge of your faculties, because she claims mental deficiency a lot, but there's no way, if she was able to do that job, that she was that mentally deficient. Anyway, so...
Well, you can't be very mentally deficient and pass the fucking bar.
Right, but I mean, she's saying it was a recent development that it was due to PTSD. I'm like, bitch, you were the abuser.
Shit.
Like, who gave you PTSD? And so what happens is there's a 911 call, and they get there, and this 15-year-old is dead. And he's in a bunk bed. But that's not where he died. She placed him there so it would look better, because he was actually sleeping in a closet in the garage with nothing but a tarp for a bed.
Wow.
Why?
Because she
was a monster.
Yeah, she was a monster.
Well,
but,
I mean, was something else
sleeping?
Was somebody else sleeping in the bunk bed?
No.
Okay.
So it's not that they didn't have room.
No,
She was just taking it out.
It was all about punishment.
Okay, that's what that's kind of what I was trying to get at.
No, it was all about punishment. So they start realizing that things don't look right. Because first of all, when they say he was emaciated, I think that was an understatement. Now remember, this is a 15-year-old boy. He weighed 68 pounds.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And
Can I say fuck on here?
yeah, we say it all the time. He weighed 68 pounds.
We can. You
I
can.
wonder how much the skeleton alone
Yeah,
weighs.
right. Like with just like organs and bones.
Your bones and
Probably
organs,
about that.
Probably about 55 pounds.
I would at least.
Well, yeah, I mean, muscle weighs more than fat.
And he
Well,
was
he didn't have any of either.
he was tall.
And
Wow.
being that emaciated, I just bit my tongue. Son of a bitch.
Oh, I hate it when I do that.
Being that emaciated, his brain was fucking up too because you have to have cholesterol and fat to
Right,
fuel
to
your brain.
actually, but
yeah, to function cognitively.
he was they say he was nonverbal, but they don't mean that he couldn't speak at all. He was autistic, and he did not speak much.
Well, who said he was nonverbal? His parents?
Right.
Okay.
So a 150-pound woman's skeleton weighs about 22.5 pounds. A 200-pound male skeleton is about 30 pounds. So,
Well, and he was tall, and
So you're talking about
And
a
you're-
30-pound skeleton, probably 15,
brain,
20 pounds of organs,
Yeah.
and 5
And
pounds
skin.
of muscle.
well, yeah,
Skin.
Man.
Well, so the first thing that the cops on scene start to question is obviously his emaciated appearance. And she tells them that he went on repeated hunger strikes.
Okay.
Now,
Tell me they didn't believe that.
Yeah, because then it would have been her responsibility to take him to the hospital.
right.
Yeah.
That, to me, I'm like, okay, so what if he was? That just means he had like a mental and emotional problem that he needed help for.
Yep.
And she goes, oh, well, he wore baggy clothes and you couldn't tell how small he was. And so, yeah. So what was actually happening to this kid? Apparently, it sounds to me like on both sides of the parents, the kids just really got a bum rap on parents, because the minute his older brother, who was 20 at the time he died, the minute he turned 18, Dad kicked him out. And he had to, this tells you how involved with their life she was. He had to ask someone for his mother's number.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And called her and said, I don't have anywhere to go. Will you take me in? So he went to live with the mother at that point. And there were two children that were older that had already moved out of the house and moved on. Like one was, at the time Timothy died, was actually taking the bar himself. And he didn't know this was going on. Because she had, literally, they had no contact with this woman. And so the dad, Timothy,
Probably better that way.
yeah, except for poor Timothy, because when he was 14, his dad said he couldn't handle him anymore. And first of all, okay, let's just assume that that's the God's honest truth. But there are group homes that specialize in the care of kids like this that, have learning disabilities or developmental and emotional disabilities. And while everybody goes, well, I don't want to put a kid in basically a nursing home for kids, it's still better than being starved
Better
to
than
death.
being
Yeah,
dead.
true.
And so there were options. But anyway, she'd had no contact. She said, yes, send him here. Now, mind you, she had remarried and had a 7-year-old at the time that they called G. Of course, he's little, so they don't give his name. And the stepdad, about 6 months after Timothy moved there.
It's okay. You can cough. I wish y'all could see that. She's over here trying to keep from coughing, breaking a sweat and shit. No. Let it out. It'll be okay.
So now in this house is living Shanda, the mom, her new husband.
I wonder how the new husband felt about that.
I don't know. And we don't hear anything from him, and I'll tell you why in a minute.
Oh, wow.
And then there's the young son that they had together, G. Then there's Paul, who's the 20-year-old now, and Timothy, who's 15 at the time he dies. Well, new husband has a massive stroke.
Oh.
Ends up in...
How old is new husband?
I don't know. They never... In all the things I've read, I've never heard.
They just neglected that little... okay.
Because there's so much on her that, like, it just becomes... Because they don't think he had any... Even if he were able to stand trial, which he's not, they're like, we don't think he had anything to do with this.
Okay.
So, Mom was locking up all the food. She would not allow Timothy to sleep because apparently they had alarms that went off every time he moved.
Oh my God.
Like motion sensor alarms all over the house.
Jeez.
I mean, it's literally like torture.
Yeah.
Oh,
Not just neglect or anything.
no,
It's
it is
literally like
systematic torture. And you haven't even heard the crazy shit yet. So,
I mean, what sleep deprivation will do to you is
and
Yeah,
they
and
would,
it don't take long either.
no, it doesn't.
and they would ask, why were you keeping him awake? Well, he kept us awake, so he wasn't going to be able to sleep.
People that were
Wow.
in the Battle of the Bulge captured, they weren't even treated like that in the concentration camps.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, this woman, and it wasn't just her because she enlisted the help of the older brother.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's bad. The mom has since been sentenced, and she'll never see the light of day again.
Good. I hope her ass is
Yeah.
fucking
Oh, shit.
fisted
Oh, I-
every day.
Oh, I've listened to tapes from her from prison calling people, and she complains about how she can't sleep and it's cold
Poor thing.
and
They keep beating me with a bar of soap and
oh
so
God, I would like I would sign up. Like, I'd be like, where do I get to this is for Timothy. But anyway,
Jeez.
so they lock all the food up. Now, mind you, the other kids have access to the run of the house just like normal, but because he is everything is he's trying to be difficult, and like so it comes to a point where his diet, mind you, couldn't have been much, but all he was allowed to eat was bread soaked in habanero hot sauce.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And
So his fucking intestines probably had blisters on
oh
them.
Jesus.
Yeah.
If that's
mean,
even a thing. I mean,
it can cause ulcers on you.
You know his throat did.
Oh yeah. And they would do things like if he would get in trouble, he would get in trouble, and that was by he got access to, he found like some unsecured food and ate something. That was what he did to be in
Constituted
trouble.
being in trouble.
Yes. I mean,
Wow.
he wasn't destroying property. He was just a desperate...
Trying to survive.
Right.
Now, did the 20-year-old son get sentenced?
Yes.
Okay.
He took he turned on his mom and gave evidence thinking it would keep him from getting a stiff sentence, but
Oh, well.
he ended up getting 30 years.
Good.
Yeah. And he
Good.
was shocked.
Oh.
And get this, now, there's proof of these things because they took their cell phone records and their texts. She had cameras where she could watch the older brother and Timothy from her job.
Jesus.
And she would there's transcripts of her texting Paul saying, hey, I just saw him. He's laying in a way that looks too comfortable. You need to go do something about it.
Oh my God.
Oh, my God.
He can't be allowed to be comfortable like that. And she had an ice machine. Like you see those Pebble ice machines?
Yeah, that's a good ice.
Yeah. Well, you know what they use their good ice for? Ice baths. They would put him in the bathtub and fill it with ice. On the last night of this kid's life, he was in an ice bath for 9 hours.
How did he not die?
He did.
He did.
Well, he did.
That was
When he
that
died?
was what finally, and she, during the ice bath started while she was still at work, because apparently she would go to work and then she would come home and she'd pick up Paul and take him to work, and then she'd come back. And
Well, I hope her and that boy got charged with a count of torture for every day that Timothy was in that bitch's custody.
so they you know where the brother drew the line, where the thing he wouldn't do out of all the things he did, do you know what was one step too far?
What?
She told him, because she was trying, and like in the notes and stuff, it would say they were always talking about how Timothy was faking it. He was faking his weakness, his sickness, his lack of verbal ability. And so they would do things like, she would say, I mean, like, it's junk food, but what kid do you know that doesn't love pizza rolls?
Right.
So Paul would make pizza rolls for him and G, and she would say, take one and hold it under his nose and see if that'll make him react.
Oh my God.
But jerk it away. Don't let him have it. I mean, she would say that. And then the day he was dying, she was like, well, we know he's just pretending. Go hold some pizza rolls under his nose, some frozen ones, and tell him if he acts right, he can have them. Well, the kid, I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, at that point, it
was too little.
Definitely too late.
Yeah. And so, but anyway, the thing that Paul would not do was, she said, well, why don't you put that habanero sauce on his genitals?
Oh my God, what the fuck?
When he was in the ice bath. Because that wasn't bad enough.
Oh my God.
And so, Timothy,
How long did this
Paul,
go on for?
He was in her custody less than 2 years. They have records showing that this abuse went on at least 18 months.
God.
Jesus Christ.
Now, did the husband have a stroke before Timothy came into the house?
No, it's best I can tell. The abuse started. I'm sure it wasn't good for him in the beginning, but when it started to really get insanity, like torture, was after the husband had his stroke. And
so, do you think that the husband was keeping the crazy bitch at bay?
probably,
It sounds like a little bit at least.
probably that, or she didn't want him to see the worst of her, you know?
Do you think that she did something to
I've
the
wondered
husband
about
to
that.
have a stroke?
That was my first thing. Like, did she, because it just seems really,
Coincidental?
yeah, it just,
Yeah.
like, there's a lot of shit going on in that house. And, you know, it made me wonder. Now, mind you, the whole time she's claiming, and on the stand, everything, they're reading her own text messages back to her, right? So they're reading this part where, you know, about the hot sauce or about the bread or any of it. And they'll say, do you remember that? I don't recall that.
I'd have been like, you don't need to remember it. We have your phone with your text.
Everything they would say, I mean, if it says that, I must have, but I don't have any recollection of that. That was all she said. She never owned up to a damn thing. But now at the same time, she was training service dogs for people. The dogs, and the judge even said this when he sentenced her. He was like, the dogs in your care received better care than this child.
Yeah.
No kidding.
You know, you're a monster and you can't fool anybody now with your intellect or anything else. We all see you. We all know who you are, and we will not let this stand. I've never heard a judge be so, like, he was, I mean, of course he was angry, but like you could tell that he was appalled. All the things he sees, and he was like, this is the most egregious torture and abuse I have ever seen.
So, what was her actual sentence?
She was sentenced with murder.
Okay.
And hers is life without the possibility of parole. She'll never see the outside of a prison again.
Her son ought to get the same
Well,
fucking
and see,
sentence.
I'm glad you said that, because there's a lot of people on social media that don't think he should have been charged.
Really?
He was 20 years
You
old.
know, I could understand if he was a teenager and they're saying, you know, he was kind of brainwashed or whatever. But
No, but if he was an adult, no, yeah.
Yeah, like he had not been raised with her, you know, and like it was really like they showed. I'm wondering, based on some video that they showed of Timothy being recorded, they were G played Little League, and they were at a practice before a game, and so Timothy was on it, and the mother was throwing the ball back and forth to the kid, and Paul's interaction with his mom was weird. It was flirtatious.
Ew.
Yeah, it was very strange.
Oedipus.
Yes, it was very strange, very twisted. Like he was overly solicitous of her. Like I think like they were throwing the ball and it popped out of her hand and like brushed into her hat. Didn't hit her face or anything, just like she had a baseball cap on.
Right.
And he was like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And was just like really like, it was so over the top. I was just like, so there are a lot of people.
I wonder if he was doing stuff for his mom to.
To get his mom to do stuff for him.
Yeah. And like a lot of people have said they think that he was molested by his mom, and they're like, you know, maybe
That's not an excuse to kill your brother, though.
Absolutely not. I mean, because like Amber said, he was 18 when he came into her care.
Was he developmentally delayed or anything like that? Or?
Well, they try to claim he is, but I think he'd held down jobs and, you know, stuff like
You
that.
know the difference between right and wrong.
Right. I mean, even if he was like a little bit on the like spectrum or something, but I mean, he was good enough to hold down jobs in like, I think he worked at like a Home Depot or something. So, I mean, it's, you know, he had to have been, you know, he had to have known.
Yeah, I think that.
There's no way you could convince me that he didn't know that, you know, and but a lot of people are like, oh, no, he's a victim. I'm like, no, who's a victim is that little boy.
Well, he might, you know, at one point he might have been. But being a victim doesn't give you carte blanche to torture and murder people.
So when did the brother leave her custody?
All of them, you mean?
No, Paul.
Paul, she lost custody. Okay, there was an older brother, a sister, Paul, then Timothy. They were living in Oklahoma, and she lost custody of them in like the early 2000s when they were all little.
So even if she had molested him when he was little, when he comes back to her at 18,
Right.
he's not just going to want to start banging mom.
No.
So there's some weird
Yeah, there's some.
crap going
Yeah,
on there.
The shit clearly isn't right, but at the same time, he had to have known. He had to. He knew putting the stuff on his junk was too much. You know? And it. And
Or did he just say that after the fact because it made it?
no,
he thought
it's
it made
in the
it more-
text.
Oh, so it's
He
it's
defied
at
her
the
in
moment. Okay.
that she told him to do
Okay.
that via text, and he defied her and said, "I'm not going to do that."
Okay.
So if he could, and that was, to me, that was really telling, because if he could stand up to her then,
Yeah.
because everybody was like, well, maybe he was afraid that he'd be punished if he bucked her orders, which maybe.
Okay, well,
but he didn't have a problem with
How
that.
about this? He's a 20-year-old grown man.
Much bigger
What
than
is she
her.
gonna do?
Much bigger than her.
She gonna what? Not feed him? He can go get his own food.
Yeah, he's got a job.
Yeah,
you know.
he has a job. He has his own money.
Well, and to me, it was just very telling because he was able to buck her authority there. So it tells me if he really wanted to, he could have done it all along.
Uh-huh.
And she's very manipulative. Like, she's on the stand And I've told you, she does this thing. I don't recall that. And you need to look her up, like, images, Amber. It's very telling because for court, she always has her hair in pigtails. Like braids. Yeah. She's trying to look very innocent and very, doe-eyed, and she's always like blinking her eyes.
Oh
and,
my God.
When they hand her a picture of the state Timothy was in when they found him. She vomits on the stand.
Huh.
Well, how'd she make herself do it?
I don't know. Is she that deluded?
Well, Ross can do it.
Yeah, well, Ross has a special gift, though. I don't think everybody can do that.
Yeah, but he can do it. She might have that same thing.
Oh, I'm not suggesting that she was that horrified. If you ask my personal opinion, I think the reason she vomited is because she looked at that and she thought, there is no way I'm going to be able to justify this shit. Mm-hmm. And it was for her. The reaction was for her consequences, not his.
Yeah.
No, she didn't give a shit about that kid.
Well, no, obviously not.
And then she's petitioned because obviously she's never going to be his mom again in any real sense. But they were trying to, and the dad, I guess, is permanently impacted by the stroke. So they were trying to give custody to, I guess, the dad's parents.
Right.
And she's filing stuff from behind bars trying to stop that. She wants to retain custody of G.
Oh my God.
And like it was really sad at the sentencing portion of the trial. The two oldest kids, the brother who's now a lawyer and
that had already left the house,
that were long gone before all this had left the dad's house. They talked about, because Timothy, from Paul and from Shanda, they painted this picture of Timothy as very disruptive and like this mindless, destructive presence.
Right.
And is completely different than the picture painted by his siblings. The older brother, he's weeping and he's like, my little brother was so sweet. He just wanted to be loved. The only time I ever remember him ever like throwing a fit or he'd get agitated when it was time to leave because he didn't want to let go of you and didn't want you to leave. And, he's like, I feel so much grief that we didn't know because I would have stopped it. I can't speak to why my brother didn't stop it, but I would have stopped it, but I was kept from knowing. And, they were just like, and they showed pictures of him, and he's just this like blue-eyed, blonde little boy that if you saw the pictures, you'd think he's perfectly normal and there's nothing wrong with him. And, and it was just very different than the way that they tried to portray him as this like deeply troubled, not able to feel affection and love. And, it was like they demonized the child even further
Right.
to try and excuse as if it would.
Yeah, I mean,
their
it
treatment.
doesn't matter what there is no situation
In which
where their actions are okay.
I mean,
it doesn't matter what the situation is.
it's just one of those cases where the first time I saw it, it hit me hard, and I'm constantly looking for updates. I just feel so angry that, first of all, if she lost custody and had to have supervised custody, I don't understand how Timothy was able to go to her.
Right.
Like, but I think he was homeschooled.
Yeah, I think authorities didn't know that he was
Like, he was
with her.
completely under the radar.
Yeah.
Because the dad, and they proved that he hadn't been to the doctor in like 4 years by the time he died. 2 years with his dad and 2 years with her. Nobody taking him to the doctor. No checkup. No. I mean, so that's from 11 to 15. You can't tell me the kid never got sick, never got injured. That's not,
See, what irritates me is the mom and the brother will Well, the brother will get out eventually, maybe, but the mom will live out the rest of her days
In comfort.
in comfort.
I mean, maybe it's she doesn't have freedom, but she'll get meals.
In a situation like that, and people can say whatever they want to say, and I don't give a fuck. Don't come after me. Those two should have been taken out behind the courthouse, put 2 bullets in their forehead, and leave them there.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I do.
I think they should be
Or
starved,
torture them, whatever.
and put in ice baths. They should feel what they thought was appropriate treatment for Timothy.
Well, however, but finish it relatively quickly. Don't let them fucking
Live out their life.
Live out their lives, and she'll write a book, and Paul will write a book.
Oh,
and,
they're already talking about it, both of them. Which, first
sign
of
a
all,
movie,
you can't.
yeah, there's the Son of Sam laws.
Yeah, you can't profit off of it. But he, on one of his jail phone calls I listened to earlier this week, he's already talking about, well, maybe I can prevent this from happening again by sharing my story.
Oh, boy.
Bitch, please.
You didn't prevent it from happening the first time when you could have.
You didn't care that it was happening in the first place. You were an active participant. And she has the gall to complain to, first of all, I wouldn't take her call if she called me.
No.
But she's got this friend that she talks to, and she's like, oh, it's so cold in here. I'm always cold. The food isn't good. I'm hungry. I can't sleep.
Maybe they should give her some bread soaked in habanero hot sauce.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Yeah.
kitchen staff should be covered in shit.
It's just, I mean, I know that awful shit happens and it stays covered up, but this just haunted me. It was just...
Yeah, well, shit, you're right. Shit does happen all the time. And all the time, it doesn't come out, or people get let go when they shouldn't, or whatever. But this is a case these motherfuckers should be made an example of. Mm-hmm. I mean, publicly. Mm-hmm. You know, and you'll have the bleeding hearts that will say, oh, that's cruel and unusual. You're fucking right.
It was cruel and unusual.
Yeah, they were
What they
cruel
did
and
was cruel.
unusual, so...
Yeah, what they did
apparently
was
that's
cruel
their
and
hobby,
unusual.
is cruel and unusual.
You know, it's not like she got shit-faced and was driving and ran him over. Mm-mm. That would have been an accident. What she did and what her son did were intentional, which makes it infinitely worse.
Yes. And that closet that he lived in was about the size of your first bathroom here that Bo has.
Right.
So maybe what? 4.5, 5 feet by 5 feet, because it was
maybe.
a square. Mm-hmm. And literally all that was in it was a blue tarp, like you'd get it.
What did he shit in there too?
Well, there was a bucket, but they took it out.
I mean, there probably wasn't enough food for him to do
Yeah, I
anything.
mean, you got to eat to shit.
Yeah.
And like you said, she, all through her testimony, she's talking about all these behavioral problems and issues. And I'm thinking, God bless America. He didn't have enough calories to run his brain.
Nope.
No.
And it's just...
See, if I was, and I guess the prosecuting attorney did a good job because he got a conviction.
Oh,
and that was an easy conviction too.
yeah, but let me tell you, he didn't give her, you're right. It was an easy conviction because she convicted herself with all those text messages and stuff like that. But man, he raked her over the coals every chance he
for
could.
him.
Yeah, he was just
I
every chance he was like, well, is that upsetting to you? Well, it's upsetting to us that,
Yeah.
Oh, well, when she started talking about behavioral problems, the first thing I'd have said was, so you thought that the best solution was to torture him to death.
Mm.
And she tries to get back at one point, like pop back at him. And she's like, you're just being argumentative. And he's like, I am. I don't recall that.
Nice.
Yeah, it was nice. It was just like, I'm glad that they literally threw the book at her, but I think it should have been a death penalty case.
Oh, I do too.
Absolutely.
Because every bit of that, him dying wasn't premeditated. They wanted to prolong that so they could torture him for the rest of his life.
Right, they didn't want him to die. They were having fun.
Which is so much worse.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, like, they have the body cam of the cop that first responded, and she's putting on this big show. I feel like such a failure as a mother.
You ought to.
And
Yeah,
she's
sure.
saying, you know, he would do these. It was the hunger strikes. I didn't realize. And, you know, and the guy can see that there's padlocks on the cabinets in the refrigerator.
Oh,
okay, so how do you? And you know, she tried to pass it off when she first called it in.
Well, and no one. If food is available, no one has the willpower to hunger strike themselves to death. No one.
You know,
The only way that happens is if food is being withheld.
yeah, like you're in a jail cell, or you know,
Yeah. Or there are padlocks on the cabinets.
yeah, and yeah, she tried so hard to play this off as, oh, he just must have, you know, fallen. Like, she told him that he fell from the bunk bed, and she told him that, I mean, she just lie after lie about how he came to be in this condition. Well, I hadn't seen him, you know, he'd been wearing such baggy clothes, I didn't realize he was that thin. And all they have to do is subpoena her phone records, and they see her talking about putting him in an ice bath for 9 hours.
Jesus
and it goes on, like, in the ice bath, you know, he try to lay his head on the tub, and she make him hold his head up.
Oh, God.
I swear to God, I'd set this bitch on fire.
Yeah.
Gleefully, just like. So yeah, I know I haven't been very pulled together on this, because it just upsets me so fucking bad. My brain just shorts out, and I just get so angry that that this poor child suffered like this, and there wasn't anybody, like, everybody that should have saved him and been there for him just let him down. Everybody failed this child. And, you know, the judge even said at one point in the sentencing, he was like, you know, Timothy won in the end, because Timothy went to a place where you can't hurt him anymore.
Yeah.
But you will have to suffer the rest of your days knowing what you did. And I thought, yeah.
If it even affects them.
Right.
Yeah.
If she even...
Well, someone that's capable of doing that doesn't have a conscience.
Yeah.
Like,
You know, it's and this is going to sound horrible, but it's one thing if you're torturing someone with a goal. If you're torturing someone to get information.
or yeah.
Or whatever, where there's a goal in mind. Mm-hmm. But to doing it just to do it, that's evil.
It's sadism, like, literally. And that's the thing she kept trying to say through the whole testimony. The only thing she could remember, she couldn't remember any of the things she said, any of the things she did, but she could remember quite clearly that these were not tortures, they were punishments for behaviors.
Right. Sure.
That's the only thing she could remember.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that she gets punishment for her behaviors behind bars.
Yeah. Well, there's a special place in hell for her.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know how the women's prison does, but I know men's prison.
Oh, yeah. In the men's prison, I bet her son is
any
having
child
a
or
problem.
woman.
Well, he's already not looking good. Like, when they have,
Well, hopefully they're wearing his asshole out every day.
well, I have a feeling he's getting the shit beat out of him, because he
is.
he looks very thin. And he didn't before, you know, and now he's got these huge bags under his eyes, and
That's too bad.
yeah.
So hard time sleeping?
Yeah, and no, I feel like, because think about how many of those women in that prison are parents, and then they've committed a crime, but not against their child or whatever, and would give anything to have access to their child. And I can't help but think that all that anger will come out at that, and I hope.
I hope so.
Yeah.
You know.
And I mean, that would be justice. Her getting to live out the rest of her days in relative comfort is not justice.
No, because with her education, she would be a valuable commodity, with her legal background and stuff in prison. And so, unfortunately, unless fellow inmates make it pretty difficult on her, she'll have a pretty cushy life in prison.
Or if they beat her enough times where she develops tumors. That happened to a guy I went to high school with. Apparently, he raped some 14-year-old girl with Down syndrome.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
God.
and got her pregnant, and so he wound up getting convicted, went to jail, and they beat him in the head until he had brain tumors and he died from them. Yeah, it's like, well,
I guess that's what happens.
shouldn't be raping people.
I mean, yeah. Well, I know this was a real downer of an episode, but I thought it was important to talk about just because people should know his story, and he deserves to be acknowledged, at least in death, in a way he never was in life. So, on that depressing footnote, I guess we'll sign off.
Okay then.
Bye.
Bye.